My uncle worked as a security guard at a recently closed elementary school in rural Gunma Prefecture. The building had been empty for 3 months. Someone kept turning on the light. Every night at exactly 11:47 p.m., third-floor classroom lights would flicker on. My uncle would check the breaker box. All switches were off. But upstairs, fluorescent bulbs hummed their ghostly tune. On his third week, he decided to investigate. The wooden stairs creaked under his weight as he climbed to the third floor. Room 3B, the lights were definitely on. Through the frosted glass door, he could see a shadow moving inside. Slow, methodical, sweeping motions. Someone was cleaning the classroom. My uncle knocked gently. "Hello? The school is closed." The sweeping stopped. Silence. He turned the handle and pushed open the door. The classroom was empty, but spotlessly clean. Desks arranged in perfect rows, chalkboard freshly erased. Even the floor, it gleamed like it had just been mopped. But there was no janitor, no cleaning supplies, no footprint, just the faint smell of disinfectant hanging in the air. As he turned to leave, something crunched under his foot. Broken chalk, fresh white powder scattered across the floor. He looked up at the chalkboard. Written in shaky, childlike handwriting, "Tanaka-sensei, thank you for keeping our classroom clean." My uncle's blood ran cold. Tanaka-sensei had been the school's janitor for 30 years. He died of a heart attack in this very classroom 6 months before the school closed. My uncle quit the next day, but sometime when he drives past the school at night, he still sees that third-floor light, flickering on exactly at 11:47 p.m. Some people never really retire. This happened to my friend Yuki when she was exploring abandoned buildings in Osaka. She found a middle school that had been closed for over a decade. The windows were boarded up, doors chained shut, but Yuki was determined to get inside. She found a broken window on the ground floor and squeezed through. The hallway was dark, filled with the musty smell of decay. Broken glass crunched under her feet as she explored each room. Empty classrooms, overturned desks, graffiti on the wall. Nothing unusual until she reached the music room. The door was slightly ajar. Inside, she could hear music, faint but unmistakable. A piano playing a simple melody, kind children learn in school. Yuki pushed the door open wider. The room was in perfect condition. No dust, no broken instruments, no damage at all. And at the piano sat a small girl in a school uniform. Her back was turned to Yuki, fingers moving gracefully across the keys. The melody was beautiful, somehow wrong. Too perfect, too practiced, like it had been played 1,000 times. "Excuse me," Yuki called softly. The music stopped. Slowly, the girl's head began to turn. But Yuki didn't wait to see her face. Something deep inside her screamed, "Run!" She sprinted through the hallway out the broken window and didn't stop until she reached her car. As she drove away, she could still hear it, the piano playing that same melody. Later, she researched the school's history. A student named Emiko had died in the music room 15 years ago. She was practicing for a recital when the ceiling collapsed. The song she was playing, it was never finished. Yuki never returned to that school, but sometimes, late at night, she still hears that melody in her dream. Always the same note, always unfinished. Some performances never end. A group of urban explorers broke into an abandoned high school in Sendai last summer. The school had been damaged in the 2011 tsunami and never reopened. Most of the building was a wreck, except for one area, the indoor swimming pool. Takeshi, the group leader, was the first to find it. The heavy metal doors creaked open, and he froze. The pool was full, crystal clear water reflecting the broken skylights above. Impossible. The school had no electricity, no water supply, nothing. But there it was, perfect rectangle of water in an otherwise dead building. His friends joined him, all equally confused. "Maybe it's rainwater," suggested Hiro. But the water was too clean, too clear, and it had that distinct smell of chlorine. As they walked around the pool's edge, Keishi noticed something. Lane dividers floating in perfect parallel lines, like the pool was ready for a swim meet. That's when they heard it. Splash! Everyone turned toward the sound. Ripples spread across the water's surface, but no one had thrown anything in. Another splash, then another. The water began to churn, like invisible swimmers were racing through the lane. "We should leave," whispered Yui, backing toward the door. But Takeshi was mesmerized. He could almost see them, transparent figures cutting through the water, arms stroking in perfect rhythm, legs kicking with desperate urgency. The splashing grew louder, more frantic, like someone was drowning. Then silence. The water became perfectly still. But now, there were bubbles rising from the deep end, like someone was still down there, trying to breathe. The group ran. Later, they learned about the school's swim team. 7 students had been practicing when the tsunami hit. Their bodies were never found. Some say they're still there, still swimming, racing against time itself, trying to reach a finish line they'll never cross. My cousin Akira works in demolition. He's seen things that would make most people quit, but nothing prepared him for the job in Kyoto, an old junior high school scheduled for complete teardown. The building had been empty for 8 years. Before demolition, they needed to do a final sweep for hazardous material. Asbestos, lead paint, old chemicals in the science labs. Akira was assigned to check the second-floor chemistry lab. He climbed the stairs, his footsteps echoing in the empty hallway. The lab door was locked, but the key was still hanging on a hook beside it. Strange, but not unheard of. He unlocked the door and stepped inside. The lab looked active. Beakers and test tubes arranged on the tables as if class had just ended. Some still contained colorful liquid. The periodic table hung perfectly straight on the wall. Even the chalkboard had formulas written in neat handwriting. Akira approached one of the tables. A Bunsen burner was connected to the gas line, and it was lit, a small blue flame dancing in the empty room. Impossible. The gas had been shut off years ago. Above the flame, a test tube filled with red liquid was slowly heating. Bubbles rose to the surface like blood coming to a boil. Akira reached to turn off the burner. That's when he heard the voice. "Don't touch that. The experiment isn't finished." He spun around. A man in a white lab coat stood by the supply cabinet, thin, elderly, with thick glasses and graying hair. "Sir, this building is scheduled for demolition. You need to leave." The man smiled, a sad, distant expression. "I've been trying to finish this experiment for 8 years now. Every time I get close, someone interrupts." Akira noticed something wrong with the man's reflection in the glass cabinet. It was faded, transparent. "What kind of experiment?" Akira asked, his voice barely a whisper. The man pointed to the bubbling test tube. "I'm trying to determine the exact chemical composition of life. You see, I died in this room during a chemical accident, and I need to know what leaves the body when life ends." Akira backed toward the door. The red liquid in the test tube began to glow. "Almost there," the man whispered excitedly. Akira ran, slamming the door behind him. The building was demolished the next week. But Akira still wondered, did the teacher finally finish his experiment? And if so, what did he discover about the chemistry of death? This story comes from a photographer named Sato-san, who specializes in documenting abandoned places. He was commissioned to photograph an old high school in Hokkaido before its demolition. The school had closed suddenly 20 years ago after an incident. Sato-san arrived early morning, camera equipment in hand. He wanted to capture the way sunlight filtered through broken windows. The main hallway was a photographer's dream, long shadows and peeling. He took dozens of shots, each more haunting than the last. Then he found the trophy case. Most of the glass was shattered, trophies scattered on the floor. But one item remained intact, framed class photo from 1998. 3 rows of smiling students in their school uniform. Sato-san focused his lens on the photograph. Through his camera viewfinder, something was wrong. One student in the back row, her face was blurred. Not from camera movement or age, but like she was moving while the photo was taken. He lowered his camera and looked directly at the frame. The girl's face was clear, smiling normally. He raised the camera again, blurred, like she was shaking her head violently. Sato-san took the shot anyway, and moved on. But as he walked away, he could swear he heard whispering behind him. That evening, he developed the film in his dark room. Most of the photos turned out beautiful, but the yearbook photo, something was terribly wrong. The girl in the back row was gone. Not blurred, completely absent. Just an empty space where she should have been standing. The other students seemed to be looking at that empty space with expressions of fear. Curious, Sato-san researched the school's history. In 1998, a student named Rei Hayashi had gone missing during the school festival. Her body was found 3 days later in the school's old well. The cause of death, drowning. But here's what made Sato-san's blood run cold. The class photo was taken 2 weeks after she died. He never returned to photograph another abandoned school. Because sometimes the camera captures more than just what's there. Sometimes it shows what refuses to leave.